There is a particular kind of silence that follows the end of a relationship with a super empath. Not the silence of peace, not the silence of resolution. It is the silence of someone standing in the ruins of something they themselves destroyed, slowly realizing that what they burned down cannot be rebuilt. The narcissist knows this silence. They live inside it. And no matter how many new people they pull close, no matter how many fresh sources of admiration they surround themselves with, that silence follows them everywhere they go. Because what they lost was not just a person. What they lost was the only mirror that ever showed them something real. Most people who study narcissism approach it from the outside. They talk about what the narcissist does to others, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the cycles of idealization and discard. And all of that is true, all of that is real, and it matters deeply. But today we are going inside. We are going to look at what happens inside the narcissist's mind, inside their psychology, after they betray a super empath. Not because they deserve sympathy, but because understanding their collapse is the final piece of the puzzle that the super empath needs to fully heal and fully move on. When you understand why the narcissist cannot recover, you stop waiting for them to. You stop looking over your shoulder. You stop wondering if they are okay, and you finally completely let go. So let us begin with the question that most people never stop to ask. What was the super empath actually giving the narcissist that no one else could? The narcissist runs on what psychologists call narcissistic supply, external validation, attention, proof from the outside world that they are special, that they matter, that they exist. Without this supply, they do not simply feel bad, they unravel. Their sense of self is so thin, so manufactured, that without constant reinforcement from others, it begins to dissolve. This is why they never stop performing. This is why every room they enter becomes a stage. They are not arrogant because they think too highly of themselves. They are arrogant because they feel nothing about themselves at all, and they need you to feel something for them so they can borrow it. But here is what most people miss. Not all supply is the same. There is a hierarchy to it. There is a difference between cheap supply and rare supply. And most people in the narcissist's life give them the cheap kind. Surface-level admiration, reactions to the performance, applause for the mask. The narcissist consumes it quickly and needs more because it never actually satisfies anything. It is like trying to quench thirst with salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Then the super empath enters the picture and everything changes. The super empath does not fall for the performance, not entirely. They see the performance, yes, but they also see through it. And this is what makes them categorically different from everyone else the narcissist has ever encountered. The super empath has a perception that borders on the supernatural. They can feel the wound underneath the grandiosity. They can sense the terrified child hiding beneath the controlled, domineering adult. They can detect the profound shame buried under the polished surface. And instead of running, which is what a healthy response would eventually demand, they stay. They offer something to the narcissist that no one has ever offered before. They offer to see the real person and love them anyway. For the narcissist, this is not just supply, this is resurrection. Think about what it means to be someone who has spent their entire life making sure no one ever truly sees them. Every relationship the narcissist has ever had has been carefully controlled, carefully managed, kept at exactly the right distance where people can admire the image but cannot penetrate the armor. And then here comes this person, this extraordinary, deeply perceptive human being who sees straight through every layer of defense. And instead of weaponizing what they see, instead of running, instead of being repelled, they draw closer. They offer warmth, they offer understanding, they offer the thing the narcissist has been starving for since childhood without ever being able to name it. They offer to be known and to still be chosen. That is not supply, that is salvation. And the narcissist becomes addicted to it in a way that is different from any previous addiction. Because this is not just about feeling good, this is about feeling real. This is about existing in a way that does not require constant performance. Around the super empath, the narcissist catches glimpses of what it might feel like to simply be a person. A flawed, complicated, wounded person, but a real one. And those glimpses are intoxicating in a way that no amount of ordinary admiration ever could be. But here is the cruel machinery of narcissistic pathology. It does not allow the narcissist to receive this gift. It cannot, because to truly receive what the super empath is offering, the narcissist would have to become vulnerable. They would have to lower the armor, face the wound, acknowledge the damage, sit with the unbearable shame of who they really are beneath the construction. And their entire psychological structure has been built brick by brick since childhood specifically to prevent that from ever happening. So they take without receiving, they consume without integrating, they feed on the super empath's depth without letting it change them. And eventually, inevitably, because their pathology is not a choice but a compulsion, they destroy the very thing they needed most. They betray the super empath. And the moment that betrayal is complete, the moment the super empath finally sees clearly and walks away, something happens inside the narcissist that they will spend the rest of their life trying to escape. Something cracks, something that cannot be repaired with new supply, new relationships, or new performances. The silence begins, and this time nothing fills it. There is a concept in psychology called object constancy. It refers to the ability to maintain a stable, consistent sense of someone, to hold on to the full picture of who they are, their goodness, their love, their value, even when you are angry at them, even when they are not in the room, even when things are difficult. Most people develop this capacity in early childhood. It is the reason a securely attached person can have a fight with someone they love and not conclude that the relationship is over. It is the reason they can miss someone without becoming frantic. It is the reason they can trust that love persists even through distance and conflict. The narcissist never developed this, not fully, not in any reliable way. And this is not a moral failing. It is a developmental wound, the result of early environments where love was conditional, inconsistent, or weaponized, where the people who were supposed to be safe were also the people who were dangerous, where attachment itself became something to fear rather than something to rest in. The narcissist learned early that people disappear, that love evaporates, that the only way to survive is to control everything and feel nothing. This is the foundation beneath everything they do. This is the bedrock of the pathology. Now imagine what happens when someone with this wound, someone who has never been able to trust that love is stable, someone who has built an entire fortress around their inability to believe they are genuinely lovable, suddenly encounters a super empath, someone whose love is not conditional, someone whose perception is so deep and whose compassion is so steady that it does not waver when the narcissist tests it. And the narcissist will test it over and over again, pushing, provoking, withdrawing, exploding, waiting to see if this person will finally do what everyone else did, finally leave, finally confirm the belief that has organized every relationship since childhood, that love is temporary, that being truly known leads to abandonment. But the super empath does not leave. Not at first, not for a long time. And this breaks something open in the narcissist that they were never prepared for. Because every time the super empath stays, every time they respond to the narcissist's worst behavior with patience and insight rather than rejection, they are dismantling the narcissist's most foundational belief. They are providing evidence against the story the narcissist has told themselves since they were small and frightened and learning that the world was not safe. They are whispering with every act of grace that maybe it is possible to be known and still be loved, that maybe the wound is not a death sentence, that maybe there is another way to exist. The narcissist cannot fully receive this message, but they hear it. Some part of them buried deep beneath all the armor hears it, and that part becomes desperately, catastrophically attached. This is why the loss of the super empath is not like other losses for the narcissist. It is not the loss of a relationship. It is the loss of the only evidence they ever had that they might be capable of being loved for real. Every other person in the narcissist's life has loved the performance, has been dazzled by the mask, has responded to the curated image and the strategic charm. Their love never felt real to the narcissist because the narcissist knew they were only loving a fiction. But the super empath loved something closer to the truth. and that made their love the only love that ever actually counted. When the narcissist betrays the super empath, when they do the thing their pathology compels them toward, the devaluation, the cruelty, the infidelity, the pattern of destruction that eventually becomes too much, even for someone with the super empath's extraordinary capacity for compassion, they do not just lose a partner, they lose their only proof of their own lovability. They shatter the one piece of evidence that was slowly, quietly building a case for their own worth. And then comes something even more devastating. The super empath leaves with clarity, not in hysteria, not in rage, not in the kind of desperate, chaotic exit that allows the narcissist to construct a comfortable story afterward about how unstable the other person was, how they overreacted, how they were never really strong enough to handle someone like the narcissist. No, the super empath leaves the way people leave when they have done genuine inner work. They leave with their eyes open, with their voice steady, with the quiet, unshakable dignity of someone who finally chose themselves after a very long time of choosing someone else. And that kind of departure carries a verdict that the narcissist cannot argue with. In every previous relationship, when someone left, the narcissist could build a story around it. They were too insecure to handle my intensity. They loved the image, but they never knew the real me. These stories protected the narcissist's core belief system. They allowed the narcissist to maintain the illusion that somewhere underneath everything, the real them was still lovable, still special, still deserving of genuine connection. The people who left just could not see it. But the super empath saw it, all of it. The real self beneath the mask, the wound beneath the rage, the terrified, shame-soaked person beneath the grandiose performance. The super empath saw everything and chose to stay anyway, which means when the super empath finally chose to leave, they were not leaving an illusion. They were leaving the truth. And their departure did not say, "I could not handle you." It said, "I saw you completely. I understood you more deeply than anyone ever has. And after all of that, after knowing exactly who you are and exactly what you are capable of, I am choosing to walk away." That is not rejection. That is a verdict, and it is one the narcissist will hear echoing for the rest of their life. Let us talk about something that nobody in the narcissist's life will ever fully understand. Something the narcissists themselves cannot articulate, cannot name, cannot bring themselves to consciously acknowledge, even in their most private moments. Because to name it would be to face it, and facing it would require a kind of courage that the narcissist's entire psychological structure has been specifically designed to prevent. After the super empath leaves, the narcissist is alone with themselves for the first time in perhaps their entire life. Not physically alone. They will make sure of that. They will find new people quickly. They always do. The next source of supply is usually already waiting in the wings before the super empath is even fully gone. The narcissist moves fast because stillness is dangerous. Stillness means silence, and silence means they have to hear themselves think. They have to feel what is actually happening inside them. And what is happening inside them is something so unbearable, so formless and enormous and suffocating that every instinct they have screams at them to run from it. But here is what is different this time. This time they cannot fully outrun it because the super empath did something to the narcissist that no one else ever managed to do. They got inside the fortress. Not all the way, not enough to truly transform the narcissist, but enough. Enough to breach the outer walls. Enough to show the narcissist, even briefly, even in glimpses, what it felt like to be a real person in a real relationship with genuine depth and genuine stakes. And now that the super empath is gone, the narcissist knows the difference. They know the difference between what they had and what they are settling for now. They know the difference between being truly seen and being merely admired. And that knowledge is a kind of poison that spreads through every new relationship they enter. The new supply feels hollow, not because the new people are not attractive or interesting or devoted enough, but because they are not the super empath. They do not have that particular combination of depth and perception and radical acceptance. They cannot hold the narcissist's complexity the way the super empath could. They cannot provide that rare quality of connection where the narcissist felt, even if only partially, something approximating real. So the narcissist keeps reaching for something that is no longer available to them. Think about what the super empath was actually doing inside the relationship that the narcissist never recognized while it was happening. The super empath was functioning as what we might call an emotional container. The narcissist's inner world is a place of profound chaos. Without a stable sense of self, without access to genuine self-worth, without the capacity to soothe themselves or integrate difficult emotions, the narcissist exists in a state of perpetual internal turbulence. They are always oscillating between grandiosity and collapse, between rage and emptiness, between the terror of being nothing and the exhausting performance of being everything. Most people cannot survive sustained contact with this level of chaos. They either get fooled by the performance and never see the chaos at all, or they sense it and retreat. But the super empath is different. The super empath has an extraordinary capacity to remain grounded in the presence of someone else's storm. They do not get swept away. They do not retaliate when the narcissist's rage lands on them. They do not crumble when the narcissist's contempt is directed at them. They absorb it, process it, and somehow remain steady. And without even realizing it, the narcissist becomes profoundly dependent on this steadiness. The super empath becomes the regulator for an emotional system that the narcissist never learned to regulate themselves. This is not codependency in the clinical sense, though it can appear similar from the outside. This is something more specific. The super empath, through their sustained presence and their extraordinary emotional resilience, becomes a kind of external nervous system for the narcissist. When the narcissist is fracturing, the super empath's calm steadiness pulls them back toward coherence. When the narcissist's sense of self starts to dissolve, the super empath's unwavering presence reflects back something solid. When the chaos inside the narcissist threatens to become visible, to crack the surface of the performance, the super empath is there absorbing the overflow, preventing the total collapse, and then they are gone. And the narcissist is left holding all of that chaos alone. This is the part of the loss that the narcissist will never be able to explain to anyone. It is not missing the super empath the way a healthy person misses someone they love. It is more primal than that, more desperate. It is like losing a limb that you did not know was the only thing holding you upright. Suddenly, every emotion the narcissist has ever outsourced to the super empath comes flooding back with nowhere to go. The rage that the super empath used to absorb now has no container. The shame that the super empath's presence used to quiet now screams in the silence. The emptiness that the super empath's depth used to temporarily fill now gapes open like something with no bottom. And the narcissist discovers something horrifying. They do not know how to be with themselves. They never learned. They have spent their entire life outsourcing their inner world to others, using other people as mirrors, containers, regulators, stabilizers. And now the most sophisticated and effective container they ever found is gone, and nothing else comes close. The new supply cannot do what the super empath did. They are not built for it. They do not have the depth, the resilience, the perception, or frankly, the damage that made the super empath willing to try. So the narcissist keeps searching, keeps consuming, keeps moving from person to person, source to source, performance to performance, looking for someone who can make them feel the way the super empath made them feel, looking for someone who can quiet the chaos the way the super empath did. They will not find them, because what they are looking for no longer exists for them. The super empath has closed that door, has reclaimed that energy, has redirected every ounce of that extraordinary capacity inward toward their own healing, their own growth, their own becoming. And the narcissist is left knocking on a door that will never open again. There is one final dimension to this collapse that cuts deeper than everything else, deeper than the loss of supply, deeper than the loss of emotional regulation, deeper than the verdict of the super empath's departure. It is the dimension that strikes at the very core of what it means to be human. And it is the one the narcissist will carry longest, heaviest, and most silently, because it is the one they are least equipped to process and least able to admit even to themselves. The super empath did not just see who the narcissist was, they saw who the narcissist could have been. This is the part that haunts. This is the ghost that follows the narcissist into every quiet moment, every new relationship, every night when the performance is finally over and there is nothing left to distract them from themselves. Because the super empath, with their extraordinary depth of perception, did not only see the wound and the armor and the pathology, they saw through all of that to something beyond it, something the narcissist had buried so long ago they had almost stopped believing it existed. The version of themselves that was capable of genuine love, capable of real connection, capable of choosing growth over defense, vulnerability over control, truth over performance. The super empath saw that person and they believed in them. Not naively, not blindly, but with the full-eyed, clear-headed belief of someone who sees both what is and what could be simultaneously and chooses to hold space for both. They stayed not because they were fooled. They stayed because they believed the narcissist was capable of becoming someone worthy of the love being offered. And the narcissist felt this belief even if they never acknowledged it, even if they dismissed it, deflected it, weaponized it against the super empath in moments of cruelty. On some level, in some buried chamber of themselves, they felt it. And it was the most terrifying and the most precious thing anyone had ever given them, because it meant that someone looked at the full truth of who they were and still saw a future worth believing in, still saw a human being worth fighting for. But the narcissist could not meet that belief, could not rise to it, could not do the terrifying, necessary, brutal work of facing themselves honestly enough to become the person the super empath saw waiting in the distance. Because that work requires the one thing the narcissist's entire structure is built to avoid. It requires sitting with shame, real shame, not the brittle, reactive shame that explodes outward as rage and contempt, but the deep, quiet, transformative shame of truly seeing yourself clearly and deciding that you want to be better, that you are willing to be broken open in order to be rebuilt into something real. The narcissist chose the armor instead, chose the performance, chose the familiar prison of their pathology over the unknown freedom of genuine healing. And in doing so, they did not just betray the super empath, they betrayed the version of themselves that the super empath believed in. They proved through their own choices that the potential the super empath saw was real but unreachable. Not because it did not exist, but because the narcissist refused to reach for it. And now that potential is gone. Not destroyed, but foreclosed, locked behind a door that the narcissist sealed themselves and threw away the key to. Because the super empath was the only person who could have walked through that transformation with them. The only person with enough depth to hold the narcissist through the unbearable vulnerability of genuine change. The only person whose belief was grounded enough in reality to survive the process. Without the super empath, the narcissist has no guide through the territory of their own healing. And they know, on whatever level they are capable of knowing anything true about themselves, that they are unlikely to ever find another person willing to try. Meanwhile, the super empath is healing, and this is the part the narcissist cannot look away from, even though looking at it destroys them slowly. The super empath does not collapse after leaving. They do not diminish. They do not spiral into the kind of broken, desperate aftermath that would allow the narcissist to construct a comfortable story about how much the super empath needed them. Instead, the super empath does the most devastating thing they could possibly do from the narcissist's perspective. They grow, they flourish, they take all of that extraordinary depth and perception and capacity for love that the narcissist was feeding on, and they redirect it entirely toward themselves, toward their own healing, toward their own life, toward becoming more fully and freely themselves than they ever could have been while managing the narcissist's chaos. Their creativity returns, their peace returns, their sense of self, which the narcissist slowly and methodically eroded, comes back stronger and more rooted than before. They form healthier connections. They laugh differently. They carry themselves with the particular quiet confidence of someone who survived something that was designed to break them and came out the other side not broken but clarified, stripped of illusions, clear about who they are and what they will and will not accept, more themselves than ever. And the narcissist watches this through whatever windows remain available to them. And they understand, even if they cannot bear to fully admit it, exactly what this flourishing means. It means the relationship was the problem. It means the narcissist was the weight that was holding the super empath down. It means that the person they told themselves they were doing a favor by choosing, the person they convinced themselves was lucky to have them, was in fact being quietly diminished by proximity to them and is now expanding visibly and undeniably in their absence. This is the mirror the narcissist cannot shatter, cannot walk away from, cannot reframe or rewrite or spin into something more comfortable. The super empath's healing is the narcissist's truest judgment, not spoken in anger, not delivered in confrontation, just lived quietly, powerfully, and completely out of the narcissist's reach, and that is why they cannot recover. Not because the loss is too painful, but because the loss is too true.